want to go ahead and thank everybody for an outstanding school year. This is going to be our first time doing the entire 8-hour update on online. So this is a learning experience for all of us. So just bear with us as we try to produce this for you guys. We had a really good year. One of the most unconventional years that I have ever been associated with in my career in education. A lot of trying times with the COVID, school being out, the deliveries we had to do, the packets. But I'm really proud of our team and how you all stepped up to the plate. And I'm going to try to do this as quickly and as possible to get through these trainings for you guys. But it's just something that, you know, as we move forward in the COVID world that we live in, unfortunately, things have to be done a little differently. So like I said, I'm just so proud of you guys and girls for the professionalism that you showed throughout the year and stepping up to the plate, helping each other out, getting these students where the packets and the meals that they needed. So thank you so much for a great school year. You guys are outstanding, and I would not want to be with anybody else's team but ours. So I am proud to be here, and I'm proud of each and every one of you and what we're doing for our schools and our students. So thank you very much. I'm just going to expand a little bit and talk to you about the way things are looking for the upcoming school year. And none of this is set in stone. This is an ongoing process as things change. We get new information, restrictions are eased or they're tightened back up. It's very fluid. I know you probably hear that a whole lot in the news and from different outlets of information as it comes out. The school systems and the state and individual families and people are just learning how to deal with this thing as it comes. So there's going to be changes. There's going to be a lot of changes coming down the pike, and we're going to try to get that information out to you guys the best way we can. And it's probably going to be through these type media outlets, online, through our Remind system. You'll get the link. You can go on and watch it on your phone. Marshall is doing an outstanding job of pushing these things out through the Remind system and through our website. But this may be the new norm. But it's going to help us all to get where we need to be, get our requirements, and keep serving our district and the district families and students the best that we can. So we're going to make it work, and we're going to get through this, and we're going to do well with it. You guys are professionals and girls. Like I said, I'm so proud of you guys. But as these things change, we will get that information out to you. So first off, just let me say that the reminds are very important. We've got an updated system here that we're allowed to do. It's given us the capability to do a lot more than what we've done in the past. It's broken down by school. Each of you drivers are in a school group. As well as you can get individual school text, or you know, the whole fleet. You can get like the whole Laurel County Transportation team text. So those are important. A lot of information is going to be coming that way. If you're not comfortable with the Remind, let us know. We can help you work through that and figure out how to navigate on your phone, on your computers, or however you're accessing that. So it's been a really big deal for us to be able to get information out through that. So that's going to be one of the big ways that we're communicating through this until we get back in person and can gather in large groups. So those are very important. Moving forward with the trainings, I'm going to be doing confidentiality here in just a second, like I said. And again, when I'm in meetings, I can kind of gauge where we need to go with your feedback and my feedback, so I'm probably saying some of the same things over and over. It's just a little different for me, so bear with me. These times call for drastic changes in the way we do stuff, so we're going to get through it, and we're going to do the best we can with it. Right now, we don't know exactly when school's going to start back. The board just approved a late start in August, but there's nothing set in stone yet. We don't know if we're coming back with students. We don't know if we're going to have to limit our numbers on the school buses yet. We just don't know. So I'm not going to speculate. I mean, there's a couple of scenarios. We come back and it's just like normal school. We pick up every day, or we have a light and load. We just don't know yet. Or it could be that we go back the way we ended school, doing the home curriculum instruction, where it's all online. We're delivering meals and packets, but however they decide to do it, just know that I'm working for you guys. I'm going to get your time in, and we're going to support our students and families in Laurel County 100%, and we're going to do it well. So like I said, that information will be coming out later, and we'll get that update to you probably through a video like this. It could be in a document that we send out through Remind, but just make sure you're checking your email and your Remind and getting all this information as we get it a little closer to the starting date. So I will keep you updated the best we know how, but again, I want to really stress that how proud I am of you guys for the work that you did through all the last 2 months of school. Getting the packets out, delivering the food. So you guys are professionals, and I appreciate you. So confidentiality training, this is for the 2020-2021 school year. Okay, what is confidentiality? Confidentiality is protection of all personally identifiable data, information, and records collected, used, or maintained by an agency. Confidentiality requirements apply to discussions about students and student records. Okay, there are laws that govern confidentiality. FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. We have Kentucky regulations. IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act. 504s is Rehabilitation Act. HIPAA is Health Insurance, Portability and Accountability Act. So these are all the laws that govern confidentiality that we need to be concerned with. Okay, so we're going to identify what educational records are. They're personal and family data, evaluation and test data, 504 plans, progress reports, report cards, work samples, attendance records, parent-teacher conference records, audio and video tapes that we produce, electronic information stored on cell phones, information in databases, instant messages, voicemail recordings that deal with students. Okay, the ones that we're really going to be more concerned with are personal and family data. We have that on our emergency cards, 504 plans. If you've got a student that requires some type of medication or some kind of plan for riding a school bus special than just normal ridership, you will be presented with that data, but you'll have access to that. You won't have parent-teacher forms. You won't have any written conferences, anything like that. But anything that deals with the students' emergency card information, their discipline information, all that stuff is protected, and especially 504 plans and IEPs, the individual education plans for special ed students. Some of you will have stuff in there dealing with their behavior maybe, or their disability. So all that stuff is protected, and we have to be really professional with that and not disclose that to people that don't need that information. So here's kind of another one: students' biometric records. You guys are not going to be dealing with that much. That's, how tall they are, how much they weigh, what their behavioral characteristics are, their fingerprints, voice prints, handwriting, stuff like that. But if you are identifying a student in a conversation and you say they're 6'10", 400 pounds, that could be a confidentiality breach, because how many 6'10", 400 pounders do we have in the district? Okay, probably not a lot. How many students do we have with some type of disability that could be broken down and somebody could say, well, hey, I know who that is. If they're on crutches, or if they're in a wheelchair, if they're in a walker, or if they have oxygen, something like that would identify somebody's characteristics, and we have to protect that. So what does personally identifiable information mean? Okay, it's the name of a child, the name of a parent, the name of other family members, their address. This is all personally identifiable information that we have to protect and not disclose to people that don't need it. We're going to get into who can have that information here in a little bit, but these are just the baselines. What's their address? We have that. Okay, what's their school identification number? That can identify them. Their birth date, place of birth, the mother's maiden name, information that can be used alone or in a combination that specifically links to a child. And that's kind of what I was talking about with their characteristics. If they got blonde hair, if they're bald, mustache, beards, different things like that. So those are all things that we have to be concerned with. Now, how do we as a district ensure that student information and records are kept private? We make sure that all staff is trained. Here's our training. All staff is required to have this same training every year. Okay, so who has the right to inspect the records? You guys are not going to have to be dealing with that much, and if at any time you become in a situation where you feel like this could identify a student or confidentiality could be broken some way, call us. Okay. Example would be if you're on a bus and somebody wants to know who's hitting your child, or who's hitting their child, or who they're sitting with, different things like that. If there's ever any doubt that you have, pick up the radio, call us in, get to a safe place, call on the radio, let us know you need to ask a question about this. But you guys, like I said, you can't let anybody other than the parents view or inspect their emergency cards. So that would be just the first thing off the top of my head that I could think, a situation that you might be in to where you would be put in that position to say, no, you can't see that. But that would be, of course, an instant to where you would need to say, no, that's confidentiality. But if at any time you have any questions, don't hesitate to pick up the radio and holler in, or call on the cell phone and say, I've got a question about this. So part of this goes into how do we ensure parents see information only about their child? If there's ever any meetings where other students could be identified, we're going to be doing that in my office or in Marshall's office or Victoria's office. So you really don't need to be concerned with a lot of this, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of let you in on how this works in the school so you'll know. When somebody requests to view grades, you need to cover up other students' names. On discipline reports, now this one does apply to us in a big way. Do not cite other students' names on that report. So if Jimmy hit Billy, you're not going to say on Jimmy's write-up that Billy hit Jimmy and send that to the parents, because that's going to identify another child. What you need to do is what we do in the past, and you guys do a great job with this, and this is a lot of redundancy, but let us know in the write-up, make a little note to the side, who hit who, but on the regular write-up, just put the names of the student that's getting the write-up, not the student that hit that student, and vice versa. If you're talking to a parent at the bus stop, don't mention any other students. Just tell them, you can't talk about anybody's student. You can't talk about any kid but their own. Okay, if they want to tell you something about another student, that's fine. You can listen, but do not offer information about other students on the bus. So you're not going to say, well, I'm just telling you, Jimmy sits back there and hits him all day. I have moved his seat. He keeps moving back there and hitting your daughter, or things like that. You can't do that. Just tell them you're going to handle it. But if they want to talk about another student to you, that's fine. Then we can deal with that information when you get it all together. But you cannot provide information about other students. Okay, here's another really big one that could get us in trouble. If you're talking about how bad your bus was this day, or what happened on the bus, if you're in a grocery store and run into your buddy, another driver, you're talking about how bad they were. If you identify those students or any of those characteristics of that students, then those people could identify who it is, then that's a breach of confidentiality. And that's serious. I mean, we would be in a sling and you would be on the ropes if it's proven that you broke confidentiality. So be very careful. And this even goes back to talking about students in the break room, okay? And I'm not saying this happens, but if you're talking about students in the break room, somebody overhears it, they're a friend with that student's parent, they could go back and tell them, and you broke confidentiality, okay? Then you're going to be in the sling and be in here talking to me, and maybe on a some kind of improvement plan, or may have some kind of discipline. So just, when you're talking about your bus run, the best practice is to not talk about students. Okay, if you need to talk about a problem you're having on the bus, talk to me, Marshall, or Victoria. We can help you with any situation that you'd have. And you can vent to us, but you don't want to be out, especially in the break room, at the grocery store, ball game, talking about students in any capacity where they could be identified, because that would get you into some trouble. So I think we go into Facebook and social media here in a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and hit on it and come back to it if it comes up in the PowerPoint. How do we ensure parents see information only about their child? Okay, we've kind of went through some of that stuff. And emails, you don't put students' names in emails, you don't put them on faxes or anything like that. Only the parents that sign the emergency card, and we can identify them, they are the only ones that you can talk about that child to. Okay, if they're on that emergency card as the parent or guardian, you can talk to them about any of that. Grandparents, and it's kind of hard to discern in the world we live in today. We've got grandparents as guardians. aunts and uncles in some of the tougher situations, the foster parents, if they are allowed to sign the emergency card, that's who we can talk to. So that's going to be your resource. Who is on that emergency card? How can you identify them? And a lot of you know your kids that are on the bus, and their parents and guardians, but those are the only ones that we can talk to about that student's behavior. Okay? And if, like I said, any questions that you have, if you're unsure about this, call us. Okay, we'll give you some guidance on that. Confidentiality in email and telephone issues. You don't include student or teacher's names or grades in any emails that you would do about a student. It's good if you have a confidentiality statement at the end of your email. And there's an example of that here on slide 13. Don't give information on the phone. You can't always identify the person on the other end of the line. So that's one of the things that you would need to call in and let us take that responsibility on us to identify who's calling. But you get into some touchy areas if it's a phone, taking permission or talking to someone that you might not know that it's the actual guardian. Issues regarding electronic information. The contents of personal electronic devices may prove to be very embarrassing and provide information that can be used against the school district or you. Consider FERPA's definition when using cell phones, voicemail recordings, texting, Facebook, etc. So let's kind of step back from that a little bit and dive into that. So if you send a voicemail with a communication to a parent or somebody else that identifies a student and breaks confidentiality, okay, someone's going to have a record of that. It's definitely in a voicemail, a text, or a Facebook post, an instant message, a Snapchat, a Twitter, any kind of thing that goes out to the public. A lot of these things get passed around, they get screenshotted, and somebody has a record right here. I can show you. This is what driver X said about my daughter to somebody else. And what they can do is that becomes a record as evidence. So if you get upset and you get on Facebook, and this is one that could really get you in some trouble, okay? Especially on instant messaging. I don't recommend that you are friends on your social media with your students. Okay, I've always done that. I didn't recommend that to my teachers when I was in the school. It's just not a good idea to have students on your social media accounts. But when you're talking about parents, I know you like to get information out. We're community members as well as professionals taking care of their kids, and I kind of understand some of that. But if you get in a situation where you make a parent mad and you've been messaging them about their student and you say something about somebody else, they're going to have proof of that post or that instant message or that direct message that can link you back and say, well, here's the evidence. And what could ultimately happen is you could lose your job over it. You could be sued by the other parent for breaking this. So you need to be very careful with the social media posts. If you have a bad day on your bus, don't go home and get on Facebook and rant and talking about how bad the students are. Don't be messaging your parents about issues. I just don't recommend it. They've got a record of it. They can turn it around on you and use it how they wish. And we've dealt with a lot of those issues in the past with drivers. And some of you, if they were honest, they could say, look, yeah, they got me. Here's what happened, but it's just not a good idea to be ranting on Facebook or any other social media about what's going on your bus or anything like that. If you need to rant, call us. Okay, we'll take care of that through write-ups or principles or seating charts or arrangements or however we can. But it's a very dangerous thing to be associating your job, your professionalism with the social media stuff. So be very careful of that. Lesson plans, report card, modification plans, they should all be marked confidential. Substitute folders, IEPs, that's one of us that we deal with, is the individual education plans. That's their special ed plans. Behaviors, a behavior plan, intervention plans, all that stuff is confidential information. Okay, so unprofessional versus professional sharing of information. Okay, when talking to a colleague about another student, his or her family, apply these 4 questions. Okay, when determining if you may be violating a student's confidentiality rights. Okay, number 1, what is discussed? Where the discussion takes place, who is listening, and why the discussion took place. Okay, those are 4 questions to ask yourself. Okay, who can access student records? Okay, and a lot of this is going to be on us here in the office that deal with the record keeping stuff, but who can access student records? Parents and or student representatives. A student who is 18 years old or emancipated. Okay, and emancipated, that once a student turns 18 years old, they have to sign permission at the school. They have to give their parents permission to see their records, because at 18 they become an adult. So if they're 18 years old, they can see their own records and talk about their own discipline. Employees, other employees, authorized employees of the district, okay, if they have a specific need to see that student information, they can get to it. Okay, the staff from the U.S. and the state departments of education, of course, have access as well. Do guardians, divorced or separated parents, foster parents, and surrogate parents have the right to review a student's record? Okay, the answers. Both parents have a right to view their child's records unless the school has a divorce decree stating otherwise. If there are any of those situations that are on your bus where someone's not allowed to see their records or have access to that, you would be in the know. We would tell you, listen, this parent you can't talk to this parent about this child. Okay, we would let you know that. If parents have joint custody, both parents, okay, a lot of times you'll get this. You'll have 2 sets of emergency cards, one from one parent, one from the other. So in joint custody, both parents have decision making for that student. So we run across that a lot. Foster parents have a right to review the records but cannot make educational decisions unless documented by the state otherwise. Okay, that can get tricky. Like I said, if you got questions about this, if it arises, you know that it might be breaching confidentiality, let us know. We can work through it. Conditions where prior consent is not required. Okay, so this would be a case, when can you provide information when it's not, when you don't need consent from the parent to give it up. So you can disclose it within agencies with legitimate educational interests. So when we communicate with the school, we do a lot of this for you guys. We would talk to the principals and the teachers about their behavior would be the biggest one here that we could talk to them about. You guys won't be dealing with other school systems or agencies, other outside educational agencies, so you don't need to worry with that one. Anytime, and it's subpoena or court information, okay? So if you ever get subpoenaed or a court orders you to do something, come to me. We'll discuss what they're asking and go from there. So don't worry with that. Like I said, if you ever get subpoenaed for anything, come in, we'll discuss it, and we'll go from there. Of course, if there's a health emergency or a safety emergency and you've got EMTs or someone there providing emergency medical help to a student, then you can say, yeah, they're allergic to this, or this is their parents, let's call them, or things like that. So if it's an emergency, you can disclose that to the emergency workers. Okay, what is directory information? Directory information is a student's name, address, phone number, date of birth, attendance, or any kind of awards that they received. That cannot be released without consent from a parent. Can a student review or inspect their own records? They can if they are 18 or above, okay? So that they're allowed to inspect their own records, but you guys won't be dealing with that one. How do school systems release school records? Okay, so upon request, we would have to release those to the parents. Okay, the rest of these slides that we're going to do, there's going to be questions. Okay, some of these questions don't deal with us, but I'm going to let you just kind of see how this confidentiality would work in different situations. So I'll read the question, and then I'll read the answer next. So the question poses, the Children's Corner Daycare calls a local school district and requests that Sue's school records are forwarded to them. It's a small community and the person receiving the call is familiar with the caller. Can the records be sent under these conditions? Yes or no? No. If you said no, you were correct. The records cannot be sent without written parental consent. Okay, that breaks FERPA, IDEA, and a host of other things. So, next question. Okay, Amber's family moved to the neighboring county. The neighboring school district sent a request for the transfer of records. Can this information be forwarded without parental permission? Yes or no? If you said yes, you're correct. The records can be sent to the neighboring school. FERPA requirements allow school agencies to communicate when it's on enrolling. Question 3. Jane is a teacher assistant at Brownsville Elementary School. Jane's close friend asked Jane to check on the progress of the friend's nephew who also attends Brownsville. Can Jane obtain this information? If you said no, you're absolutely correct. Jane has no legitimate educational interest in the student she is asking about. That would break confidentiality if someone in the school allowed them to access to that information. Okay, here's another one. Matthew's natural father arrives at his school. He requests to see Matthew's school records. A review of his records indicate that Matthew's parents are divorced and that Matthew lives with his mother. Can the school allow access to educational records to Matthew's father? That's kind of a tricky one, but if you remember, that is a no, because both natural parents are allowed access to educational records unless there was a divorce decree or some type of court order that stated that Matthew's father could not see that. If they had that, that would be a no. Otherwise, he would be able to view those records. Okay. Here's another question. Mary is a parent member of a site-based decision-making council. Mary would like to have a look at the recent state test scores of all the students in Mrs. Reed's class. Does Mary have access to these records? No. Mary does not have the right to access the students' educational records. A site-based council member does not have access to personally identifiable information. parent consent would have to be obtained from each parent to allow married to see that. We've covered a whole lot. That's going to be the end of the confidentiality portion of this training. We've covered a whole lot. I hope that I have been able to convey a lot of the stuff that in this without having you in person, because like I said, I can kind of run my presentation by what your questions are and concerns, but like I said, it's a little different, but hopefully you've gained something from this. We do it every year, but that's going to conclude our confidentiality training. Thank you all very much.